The story begins when the two main characters, Emma and Dexter, meet for the first time the night after their graduation from university. They accidentally end up in the same bed together, but nothing romantic happens between them. Instead, they decide to remain friends and spend the rest of the night walking around the city and talking. Emma is a smart, sarcastic, and creative girl who dreams of becoming a writer. Dexter is an attractive, charismatic, but slightly frivolous young man who is looking for his way in life, but hasn't found it yet. Over the next few years, their lives continue to intertwine, although they are not always side by side. On that first day after graduation, they make a tacit agreement to meet every year on July 15th to spend that day together, and it becomes a tradition over the years. After that night, they go their separate ways. Emma moves to London, where she tries to build a career, working first as a waitress in a Mexican restaurant. She dreams of becoming a writer, but so far her life seems boring and ordinary to her. She writes in her diary, reflecting on life, about the world and herself. Dexter, on the other hand, chooses a completely different path. He begins to travel the world, enjoying freedom and permissiveness. He lives a tumultuous life full of parties, alcohol, and fleeting romances. He becomes the host of a popular television show, quickly gaining popularity and fame, but his life becomes more and more superficial and empty. Every year on July 15th they meet and their lives gradually change. Years later, Emma and Dexter continue to maintain their friendship, but their paths diverge more and more. Emma continues to work at the restaurant, slowly losing hope that she will ever be able to fulfill her dreams. She has feelings for Dexter, but doesn't dare tell him about it. At the same time, Dexter is enjoying life, basking in glory, but with each passing year his lifestyle begins to destroy him from the inside out. He becomes more and more cynical and rude, loses touch with his family, especially with his mother who has cancer, and feels increasingly lonely. One day Emma decides to try and change her life and starts dating a man called Ian. He is a comedian and clearly attracted to Emma, but their relationship lacks the passion and deep feelings Emma has for Dexter. Meanwhile, Dexter's life begins to go downhill rapidly. His career in television collapses, he loses his job and begins to abuse alcohol and drugs. He struggles to find himself in the world and loses the ease and confidence he used to have. He continues to behave irresponsibly, which eventually leads to his relationships with women becoming even more superficial and unhappy. Meanwhile, Emma is trying to find herself and her way in life. She decides to give up working in a restaurant and try her hand at writing. Despite her failures, she continues to write and gradually gains confidence in her abilities. Her life slowly begins to change and soon she releases her first book. This brings her joy and a sense of fulfillment, but at the same time she realizes that she still has strong feelings for Dexter. At one point, she and Dexter have a fight and their friendship is jeopardized. They stop seeing each other, and they each try to live their own lives. After a while, Dexter meets a woman named Sylvie, with whom he marries. At first glance, his life begins to get better. He works in a cafe that belongs to his father, and it seems that he has found his place. However, his marriage to Sylvie is not what he had envisioned. He begins to realize that he truly loves Emma, but by this point their paths are finally diverging. Emma in turn begins a relationship with Ian, but soon realizes that this relationship does not bring her happiness and breaks it off. She continues to engage in literature and even achieves success, but her personal life remains unsatisfied. After his divorce from Sylvie, which was caused by the fact that she cheats on him, Dexter finds himself in an emotional dead end. His life seems empty and meaningless to him. He loses faith in himself and his powers, but at that moment he meets Emma again. They spend an evening together and it becomes the beginning of their new chapter. They realize that they have always loved each other and want to be together. They start dating and their relationship develops rapidly. They are happy together despite all the difficulties and obstacles that stood in their way. It seems that they have finally found their happiness. Dexter and Emma move in together, and their relationship grows stronger and stronger. Dexter opens his own cafe, and Emma continues to write. They make plans for the future and start talking about having a baby. However, their happiness proves to be short-lived. One day when Emma is riding her bicycle, she has an accident and dies. This tragic moment becomes a turning point in Dexter's life. He loses the meaning of life, and he is once again overcome by a feeling of emptiness and loneliness. He cannot come to terms with his loss, and his life begins to fall apart again. He becomes withdrawn and loses interest in work and people. Several years pass and Dexter gradually begins to rebuild his life. He tries to find comfort in the memories of Emma and decides to continue living for her. He spends more and more time with his daughter from Sylvie, who becomes a source of joy and support for him. He begins to appreciate the moments they spent together with Emma and finds in them the strength to move on. He eventually decides to return to the place where he and Emma spent their first day after graduation to remember how it all began. This helps him to accept the past and find the strength to continue living. The movie ends at this point, leaving the viewer with a sense of sadness and hope at the same time.